Yo, what's up, guys? We're back, and we're going to be doing another breakdown and predictions video. This week, it's going to be for UFC Vegas 51. It's going to be Tom Aspinall taking on Alexander Volkov in the main event. And this should be a pretty fun show because it's the first time that UFC is going overseas since the whole pandemic started. The last time that they had a show outside of the United States was when they had Kevin Lee take on Charles Oliveira in Brazil. And that was when they kind of got caught a little bit with their pants down because they were already over there in Brazil. I don't think they really realized everything that was going to go down. And they were expecting to have fans, expecting other things to happen during that fight week. And then all of a sudden they had no fans. And that was the last UFC event we had for a while. But that was also a pretty fun event because if you look at it, Charles Oliveira fought Kevin Lee on that event. So that was kind of his coming out party there. And there was also Gilbert Burns versus Damian Maia on there, and Brandon Moreno taking on Juicy Formiga. So they kind of had a little bit of a coming out party of their own. And then also Nikita Krylov, who we're going to talk about a little later, also fought on that card. So that was a good card, and hopefully this one is good as well. But just before we get into it, like always, hopefully you guys put some interaction on this video. I would really appreciate it if you put a comment down below. Tell me who you think's going to win. If you like the video, let's try to get up to 200 likes on this video. And just let me know what you think about my picks. Do you agree with them? Do you not agree with them? If you're not subscribed, subscribe. I always do these videos every week for UFC breakdowns. And if you guys want additional content, if you want breakdowns for basically any promotion that has betting odds, or the large majority of them, Cage Warriors, KSW, LFA, PFL, Bellator. So if you want access to some bets for those, some videos, some written breakdowns, just to be a part of the community and help out a little bit extra, then definitely check out patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru. We're coming off a pretty successful week last week, so hopefully we could do well this week as well with Cage Warriors, with the UFC, and a couple other shows going down. But let's get into this fight card. With this first fight of the night, we got two flyweights going at it. We got the debut of Muhammad Mokaev, and he's going to be taking on Cody Durden. Mokaev, he's 21 years old. He's fighting out of England. He was born in Dagestan, but he defected to England, I believe, when he was younger, and he did represent the English national wrestling team. So he now does fight out of England for sure and represents England. And he's had a flawless build to the UFC. He's put up a 28-0 record. If you include his amateur fights, he was 23-0 as an amateur. He was able to win multiple IMAF world titles. And then as a pro, he fought most of his fights in Brave CF so far. And he's faced some decent guys, but I do believe Cody Durden is the best fighter that he's faced to date. If you look at Mokaev's amateur career, he had a boatload of amateur fights, like you said, but none of them have came against super legit competition. None of those guys have really ended up being great pro fighters. The best fighter of the bunch that I would say that he fought was Liam Giddens, who's 7-4. He's currently in Cage Warriors. As a pro, Mokaev did beat a veteran 7-4 fighter, or 9-4 fighter, in Blaine O'Driscoll in his last fight. And he also beat Abdul Hussein, who is 7-1 as a pro, and also was a former amateur world champion as well. So Mokaev has been dominant, and you could tell he's the real deal. He called out Cody Durden for this fight. I think he didn't really like that post-fight interview from Durden. So there's a little bit of heat here on this fight. I don't think either guy is really too invested in terms of disliking each other, but there's something there at least. And obviously, Mokaev is a big name right now. He's a big prospect coming in here, and if Cody Durden can get the win over him, that'd be absolutely massive for his career. But one thing you do have to note about this fight is Mokaev has only cut down to 125 pounds one time in his career. His last two fights have been at 130. All his other fights were at bantamweight. And he had one other fight at 125. And, he is facing Cody Durden here at 125, who's one of the bigger flyweights, but he's going to have to make that cut down, so we're going to see how that affects him. And he had Cody Durden here, who's kind of seen it all already. He had every possible outcome you could see in the UFC. He had a draw. He got the win in his last fight, and he's had a loss, so had every potential outcome. And he had a pretty good performance in his UFC debut. He did go in there and get tired, but it was a short notice fight up a weight class against Chris Gutierrez, who's very close to being ranked, and Durden pushed him to a draw. He dominated the first round. He was also doing well against Jimmy Flick in his second UFC fight. He was winning the stand-up, but he ended up getting caught in a flying triangle, and Jimmy Flick is the type of guy that has a tendency to catch submissions out of nowhere. But his last fight, it was back and forth. He arguably could have won, could have lost, but he got the decision on the scorecards with his wrestling over Kuling Aori. Those three fighters alone, I believe, are better than any opponent that Mokaev has ever faced. So Durden is a huge underdog here, but he has the experience advantage, and he needs to really just not fear what's going to be going on with the whole fight week build. Everyone's saying he's going to lose, going to get ran over. Don't let that get in his head. Just fight to his game plan, take it to Mokaev, be the aggressive guy you are. And if he can beat him, he's going to leap up the rankings really quickly. But Maman Mokaev, he is a really, really good wrestler. His striking and jiu-jitsu are still not really on that level. They're improving, but currently I think against these higher level guys, he's mostly going to be able to just ride them out with his wrestling. On the feet, he has started to look a little bit better with his feints and cuts the cage off. He's aggressive. He'll throw straight punches and a lot of kicks. And you could tell he's improved his kicking game. He throws some hard body kicks, some pretty good high kicks. And he isn't super comfortable still in the stand-up, but he's willing to press forward, be aggressive, and get you thinking you're going to strike with them and then close, and then, get that level change, get the takedown. Earlier in his career, he would just mainly back up, run away, and then try to frustrate guys in level change. So you do see a marketed improvement there. He has elite Olympic level wrestling, so he can hit takedowns on basically anyone that he's fought so far, and probably most of the fighters that he's going to fight in the future. And he has an elite gas tank, so he can continue to wrestle, stay attached to guys, mat return them, wear them out. His riding ability, his transitions are really good. He used to have a really boring style. Like, if you look at his amateur career, he barely had any finishes. But he will get some slam takedowns, and he will get some good ground and pound off. But now, as a pro, he's starting to get a little bit better with his transitions, with his jiu-jitsu, with his submission ability. He's gotten a couple rear naked chokes recently. And if he could start to improve in that aspect, then he could become a very, very dangerous guy. So that's something that Mokaev is going to continue to have to build, obviously, his striking and his overall grappling, his jiu-jitsu. But when you have that level of wrestling, you're a problem for almost anyone already. And Mokaev is a guy that, like I said, at the output, he's 21 years old and started fighting at 17 as an amateur. So has a ton of experience already in terms of just seeing different styles and being in there a lot, even though maybe it's not against the most high-level opponent. But Cody Durden, I mean, this guy's a roughneck guy. I mean, I don't think he's going to go in there and be kind of intimidated by the moment or anything like that. I think he's going to go and fight to his full potential. And it's going to be an interesting fight because Durden is a good athlete in his own right, and he's a wrestler. On the feet, he has better footwork, in my opinion. He'll switch stances and pretty fast. He's aggressive. He'll throw some nice low kicks, good jabs, and he likes to jab his way into the right hand. But the thing is, Durden really doesn't keep the range and try to, strike and keep it pretty. He likes to dirty box, close that distance, grapple, and a lot of his fights, do become ugly. So I don't really picture him being able to keep it on the feet and kind of outstrike Mokaev for long periods of the time, because I just don't think he's going to have the distance control or the composure on the feet to kind of do that. But he has really good wrestling, and I have seen Mokaev get taken down. I've seen him get his back taken against Liam Giddens. I've seen him lose a round by being put on his back. So that was really early in his career, amateur career. But Durden, being a really good wrestler, you should try to wrestle the wrestler, man. Go singles, go doubles. Try to get in the clinch and wear on Mokaev on his own right. If he gets taken down, work back up to his feet as fast as he can. And, if he gets on top, try to do damage, try to take the back, try to put Mokaev in positions that he's not used to, get him nervous. It is his UFC debut. He is a young guy. So, ultimately, though, Durden, he does have a couple issues. He has cardio issues. He also has issues with submission defense. And against Mokaev, I think he could start out hot early. I think he could be competitive in the grappling. I think he could maybe win some striking exchanges, land some low kicks, maybe look like he hurt Mokaev a little bit, maybe do well, land some big punches. But I think ultimately he's going to come out really pumped up because this, on top of Durden already having bad cardio, is going to be in London. He's going to get being booed by the fans heavy. I think that him and Mokaev already kind of don't really like each other. And I just think he's going to maybe have an adrenaline dump or maybe just slow down. And in that second and third round, I think Mokaev's going to start to just take him down and put it on him a little bit with the wrestling, be too much, too relentless. And I could see him getting a submission win here. So that's maybe something I would look at odds-wise. But ultimately, I'm going to say Mokaev wins by decision here against Cody Durden. And I think he might have a little bit of adversity early in the fight, but I think he'll start to take over and show why people are talking about him as a future, maybe potential UFC champion and things like that. So I'm going to go with Muhammad Mokaev here. And now we got Nathaniel Wood. He's going to be making his comeback here. He hasn't fought in over a year, so it's been a little bit for him. He was going to face Jonathan Martinez last September, but suffered a hand injury. He was forced to withdraw, so hopefully he'll be able to make it to this date. I assume he will. He was expecting to face Ludwig Sholinian on this date, but Sholinian couldn't get out of the country, I believe, so Vince Morales is replacing him, and Wood needs to bounce back from his last fight. He lost a decision to Casey Kenny. That was a really good fight, though, and it could have went either way. But he's fallen down the rankings a little bit because he's lost 2 of his last 3 fights. He did start his UFC career 3-0, but he got knocked out by John Dodson. He lost to Casey Kenny. He did beat John Castaneda in between there, which has gone on to be proven as a good win because Castaneda has gone on to be undefeated since then. And Wood is 4-2 in the UFC, so he's not done bad. Still has a lot of potential. He's still the prospect, 28 years old. So if he could string some wins together, he could potentially find himself back in the rankings. But Vince Morales, he's overachieved so far in his UFC career, if you ask me. He lost to Domingo Pilarte on the Contender Series. He jumped in on short notice and fought Song Yadong to even get his chance in the UFC. Lost that fight. And then he went on a nice little run there. He beat Ayman Zahabi, so the UFC gave him a longer leash, and he lost his next 2 after that, but he's won his last 2 fights. So he's getting more comfortable. He just beat Draco Rodriguez by decision, and then he got the knockout against Luis Smolka in the first round. So that was a big win for him. That was the biggest win of his career. But this is a pretty sizable step up for Vince Morales and Nathaniel Wood. 3 wins in a row would kind of change the way people look at Morales. Definitely earn him a marquee fight for his next matchup, in my opinion. But I think the diversity of Wood striking, his pressure, being able to take it a little better. I think that Morales wilts a little bit. I think that he's not... Wood gets hurt because he's very hittable. And I mean, we've seen him rocked and hurt in multiple fights, but he has the ability to stay calm and come back. And when Morales gets hurt, or when things start to not really go his way, I haven't seen him yet be able to turn fights around and, be able to come back. I think that Wood's leg kicks are going to be really effective. I think when he finds his range, he's going to be able to control the distance with the jab, the leg kicks, the front kicks. And I think Morales is going to be looking to get in boxing range and let his hands go. I do think he has better boxing than Wood, but I don't think Wood's going to let him get in that boxing range and let his hands go. Grappling, I favor Wood as well. I think he has better offensive wrestling, better top control. I think his submission game is better. So I think that if Morales does start to maybe back him up, which I don't envision, but if he can and starts to get in the pocket and give him some trouble with the hands, I think Wood could go in there and start to take him down. Wood is one of those fighters that relies on his chin, though, and eventually that is going to cost him. Morales is coming off a knockout win, but he isn't a knockout puncher, really, so I don't really see him being the guy that's going to crack Wood's chin. I think Wood's going to take a unanimous decision here. If the fight's close, it's in England. Morales is coming in on short notice. He has to travel. I just think Wood is the better fighter in general as well, so I think that Nathaniel Wood is going to be able to get the job done here. I think he's going to be able to get the win by decision. I think Vince Morales is a pretty tough dude. He's hard to get out of there. He did get finished by Chris Gutierrez, but I don't necessarily think that Wood has that same kicking power and kicking technique that Gutierrez does. So I think Morales has improved since then, and Wood isn't quite as dangerous. So I'm going to go with Nathaniel Wood by decision. And next year we got another fighter coming off a long layoff with Cory McKenna. She's coming off over a year off herself. And if you remember, McKenna blew her knee out in the third round of her last fight with Kay Hansen, and she was able to fight until the final bell, but that sidelined her until now. But only 21 years old, so I doubt she's going to be really any worse for wear. She's 22 now. She was 21 at the time it happened. McKenna was victorious in her UFC debut. She got the upset win. She defeated Kay Hansen. And that fight was a little bit controversial. There was quite a few people that thought that Kay Hansen should have deserved the win there. But McKenna is in her second UFC fight here, and she's a big favorite now after coming in as the underdog in her debut. She's fighting Elise Reed. And Elise Reed, unlike McKenna, lost her debut in the octagon, but she went in their up weight class. She was on short notice against established veteran in Shajar Eubanks, and it was just too much. She got finished in the first round with ground and pound. But Reed is a girl who can compete at atom weight, and she was at 125, so the size difference was very pronounced in that bout with Sajara. Here, Reed and McKenna will be pretty similar in size, and it's actually Reed who has the 3.5-inch reach advantage. Elise Reed, she only has 5 fights so far in her MMA career, but almost all of them have came against quality competition, so that's something that you have to give her credit for. She had a pretty easy fight for her MMA debut, but her second fight, she went in there against Jasmine Jasudavicius. Obviously, Jasudavicius just got a win in the UFC. She went in there against Jillian DeCourcy before. She's been in there against Hillary Rose. The fight with Rose was a 4-round title fight where Reed won the CFFC title. So Reed is definitely the fighter with the pressure on her, though, as she needs to get her first win in the UFC. But she's used to coming up big in big spots. And Reed, she's pretty skillful. She's a striker, and she is the better striker in this matchup. On the feet, she has loose hands, she has a good jab, good feints, and she does the good job of using her jab to pull out shots so she can counter. Good counter with the rear cross. She'll mix in combos, body head, 1-2s, 3-2s, 2-3s. I like the way that she throws 2-1s. So if she gets in her striking rhythm, it does become a fun fight to watch with Elise Reed doing her thing. She'll use a wide bladed stance. She does a good job of darting in and out of range, and she has good lead leg side kicks, good round kicks. Her hands are really what does the job for her, though. She needs to try to stay sharp. She needs to try to pick and pull, keep the the shot straight, work the 1-2s, work the 2-1s, try not to overextend on the right hand, and just finesse McKenna. I would try to holster the kicks in this one. Be smart, be economical with the forward pressure. Keep the distance. Don't really try to throw too heavy to knock anyone out. Just stay sharp. She needs to try to be how J.J. Aldridge was against Jillian Robertson last week. Sometimes Reed can overextend on the right hand. That's where McKenna needs to look to clinch or level change. And Reed isn't the highest end athlete, so fighters with good speed or just more size on her, that's obviously not the case in this fight, or good reach, they can close that distance and touch her because she does hold her hands low, tries to pull counter, and most of Reed's fights, she does have a height and reach advantage, so with her having the luxury of a 3-inch reach here, I do think that's going to be a pretty good benefit for her. And Reed is a good grappler. Her wrestling has cost her in certain fights. She doesn't really wrestle offensively. Her defensive wrestling is not that good, but, she has good striking and distance control. She's just a little flat-footed. She has a tendency to stand in front of opponents, and fighters can close the gap, get her against the cage, and get takedowns there. They can catch her kicks and get her down. She can be held down and dominated, but I have seen her hit a couple sweeps. Her submission defense is decent. She's been able to stay out of trouble and get out of sticky situations against some good grapplers. Obviously, her last fight, she got completely mauled. She got taken down, mounted, elbowed in the face. She got her eye completely shut and really got no offense in. So in this fight, she's going to have a lot of motivation to prove what she could do here. I think coming down to 115, she's going to be confident. She's going to be ready to put on a good performance. But this is her first fight outside of the United States, and it's against a girl that is going to be fighting in her home country. And McKenna, she's fairly similar to Reed in the stand-up. She likes to pressure, be in and out, use the jab. She likes to draw out strikes and then counter with the straight right or look to level changing at the double. She'll mix in some kicks, but she isn't quite as polished in the stand-up as Reed is yet. I think she can hold her own, especially if she can get some takedowns and get that in Reed's head as well. McKenna is young. She hasn't fought in a while, so I do expect her to show some improvements. Where she has a big advantage in this fight, though, is on the ground. She's been doing jiu-jitsu since she's been really young. She has good timing on the takedowns. When she gets on top, she has pretty good control. She's been training at Team Alpha Male for a while now as well, which obviously is going to help you. She does a good job of working to finish the fight as well. She'll slowly advance position until she can get into a finishing spot and then, do her thing, get the submission, work the ground and pound to end the fight. Kay Hansen did bully her a little bit, and she has shown early in her career she's struggled a little bit with girls exploding, getting back up to their feet on her because she doesn't really have that big strength. I think as she gets older, she's going to get better with that. She's going to get heavier on top, but she has a swag about her. She's real tough. She's durable. She has good cardio. And with this fight, I think the striking is fairly close, but Reed is a little bit more experienced. She has more power. But I see McKenna being able to likely get the takedowns. If she can do that, I see her putting in work on the mat. I think if McKenna can get her down, she's going to be able to control her, slowly advance position, put damage on Reed. I don't know if she'll be able to hit the finish, but I think she could. Till she get the back or the mount, gets up dominant positions. She's going to be the hometown fighter. Even though she's from Wales, she's fought in the UK many times. This is Reed's first fight out of the United States. So I see McKenna getting the job done by decision in a pretty dominant fight here for her. And up next, man, the UFC has a weird matchmaking or a weird kind of card here for, not weird matchmaking, but they got a weird lineup for the card here. They got Jack Shore and Timur Valiev buried on the prelims. They got another fight that we're going to talk about soon buried on the prelims. So not really sure why, but this is a really good fight. I mean, obviously, maybe it's because neither of these guys are actually from England, but Jack Shore is from Wales, so he's going to be the fighter with the crowd behind him, and he's going to be taking on the Russian here in Timur Valiev. I think these are two of the best fighters outside the top 15 at bantamweight, but man, there's so many guys you could say that about at bantamweight, but Jack Shore, man, he's approaching Khabib level status. He's started his pro career 15-0. That was on top of going 12-0 in his amateur career, so he's 29-0 overall. He's still yet to fight a super high-level fighter, though. He is 4-0 in the UFC, but he beat Nolan Hernandez, Aaron Phillips, and Ludovic Shalinian. None of those guys have been able to notch a win in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Shore's other victory came against Hunter Azure, who's a pretty good fighter, but a bit of a busted prospect. He got knocked out by Brian Kelleher, and he's had another couple losses, but Azure was able to push Shore, and I thought Shore won, but it was a split decision victory on the scorecards. Shore, he must have had a really good training camp here, super tough, because he had to be getting sharp for a guy like Umar Nurmagomedov, and after Umar pulled out, he didn't get a much easier matchup with Timur Valiev. Timur Valiev, he's really high level. He's 18-2. He's coming off a victory over Ioni Barcelos. And he's a guy that's been pining to get one of these higher level guys fight in the rankings. So if he could beat Jack Shore, he's going to be right there. He's going to probably get a top 10 opponent for his next fight. Valiev, he was knocked out in his UFC debut, but he's bounced back. He beat Martin Day, and then he got the win over Ioni. And the win over Ioni was a big win. Ioni was ranked at the time. Valiev was a big underdog. And Valiev may be the fighter with a couple of losses, but in terms of the level of opposition, it's not even comparable between Valiev and Shore. Valiev has fought some beasts on the regional scene in the PFL. He has some big-time wins, and he's on the best run of his career right now. He's at Mark Henry's gym. He's 32 years old, so he's in the middle of his prime. And he's a well-rounded fighter, Timur Valiev. On the feet, he has really good speed, footwork, switches stances. His feints are good. He doesn't have a ton of power, but he throws a lot of volume, and he darts in and darts out with some pretty good punch combinations. He has good kicks. He likes to mix in a lot of flashy techniques, spin, flying knees, and I've seen him land it previously in fights, but he does that mostly to close the distance. In the pocket, Valiev is a little bit vulnerable. He likes to load up, and he can get hit with counters. He struggles against left hooks, check hooks, not really just whatever is your lead hand. And he does have a questionable chin, in my opinion. He has gotten dropped in multiple fights. He got knocked out against Trevin Jones. He got dropped against Ioni Barcelos. So he's been knocked down in 2 of his 3 UFC fights. But he's a great grappler, and he can kind of sometimes limit the danger factor by getting guys to the ground and controlling him on top. He doesn't really force the wrestling, but he has really fast, well-timed takedown shots. He does a good job of blending his takedowns in with the striking. When he gets on top, he does a good job of staying controlled and kind of just mat returning you. He doesn't really have the most dangerous top game. He doesn't really have super great control on top, but he does a good job of, once he gets you thinking of the takedown, then, if you defend a takedown, he'll, finish the break or come off the break with the elbow or uppercut. He'll, just be able to shoot in again on you if you get up to your feet and just tire you out. And then he could start to move around you. Your feet are heavy. He's kicking you from the outside, and you just don't want to be in there with him anymore. And he just kind of out volumes you. He's evasive. He can mix it up. He has you kind of thinking, is he going to shoot in on another takedown? And, that's why he's hard to beat. He's a tough style matchup for anyone. Jack Shore, he's very technical. He has good striking, and his grappling is excellent. He likes to pressure, and he has a pretty good jab, good kicking game. His boxing is good. He has good 3-2s, 1-2s, and pretty good counters. I think that if he does win this fight, his boxing is going to be the main reason. I think he's going to be able to time Valiev with the jab or with the check hook and hurt him, or just keep him at bay with that. And he stays composed. He does a good job of, even if a guy's sticking and moving on him, because sometimes Shore isn't the highest in an athlete, he could struggle against kickers. And that is going to be an issue with him because Valiev has really good movement and feints. But, he stays composed. He finds his moment. He has really good timing on his boxing and on his level changes and his takedowns. And when he gets on top, he has really good control. He's the better grappler in terms of when he gets you down. Timur doesn't really have the best top control. Jack Shore, he's really hard to get up from under. He has good back takes. He's dangerous with the submission game. He was kind of facing lower level opposition, though, like I said. And when he fought Hunter Azure, who's a former wrestler, he wasn't able to really control Azure that effectively on the mat. He did get taken down a couple times himself, but overall, he showed good cardio. He got the better of the grappling in that fight. And I know everyone knows Jack Shore for his wrestling and grappling, obviously, but I think in this fight, he needs to sit down with some punches and look to find a counter with the check hook or the straight right, hurt or finish Valiev. And I think it's going to be difficult to take down a guy like Timur Valiev with the movement he has, with his defensive wrestling acumen. I've seen him be in there with some really good Russian guys and defend their takedowns. And that's why this is a rough matchup, because Valiev has the cardio to match Shore. He has the grappling. And on the feet, he has the bigger speed advantage, throws more volume, and he is able to kind of move around, not get hit, and just be kind of elusive and hard to deal with. I'm going to go with Valiev by decision in this one, but this is a fight where I could see Jack Shore using his reach advantage and using his boxing to hurt Valiev a couple times and offsetting the volume advantage for Valiev. So it could be an interesting fight. I think Valiev, if anyone's going to get a takedown or two, but not be able to control Shore, I don't really see Shore being able to get his grappling game going here in this fight. So it's a different type of matchup for Shore, and I think that Timur Valiev is going to show him that he needs to get a little bit better. He's not going to be able to beat everyone throughout his career, and Valiev's going to give him his first loss by decision. And this was the other fight I was alluding to, with Nikita Krylov taking on Paul Craig. Not really sure why this is on the prelims either, but both these guys are fighting, to be pretty close to being the number one contender in the light heavyweight division. There's not a lot of guys out there outside of Jiri Petrashka. There's obviously Magomed Ankalaev, Rakic out there, but a lot of those other guys have already had title shots. So these guys are in the mix a little bit, and especially Paul Craig, who's coming in on a pretty good win streak. Nikita Krylov, he's been more up and down during his UFC career. He had 2 runs in the UFC, and he clearly is a talented fighter. He's gotten some big wins. He just has come up short in some spots, and he's only 8-6 in 14 UFC fights. Since returning in 2018, he's gone 2-3. But if you look at his 3 losses, he lost to Magomed Ankalaev, he lost to Glover Teixeira, and he lost to Jan Blachowicz. So those 3 guys, 2 champs and a guy that's top 3 in the world. So can't really frown at those losses. He was able to beat Ovince St. Preux in a fight that he lost several years earlier in a rematch, and then he decisioned Johnny Walker. So he has gotten some decently high-level wins. He has been trading wins and losses since rejoining the UFC, so if that trend continues, he will come out with the win here. Paul Craig, he started his career really badly in the UFC. He won his UFC debut, but then he lost 3 of his next 4 fights after that. Since then, though, Craig has managed to turn his career around. He has only lost 1 of his last 7. He's gone 5-1-1. He did get knocked out by Alonzo Menafield, but that's the last time that he lost a fight. It was in June of 2019. He went to a draw with Shogun Rua, but was able to prove at the full camp he was the superior fighter at this stage in their careers. He finished Shogun in the rematch, and he's coming off a win over one of the most dangerous fighters in the division in Jamal Hill. So currently, he's been unbeaten in his last 5 fights. He has a really fun style as well, so win or lose with a Paul Craig fight, you're getting your money's worth. He's only gotten a decision 1 time in his entire career, and he has a lot of fights finished early in his UFC career. 6 of his 12 fights ended in the first round. He also has 2 come from behind submission wins in the last minute of the fight, though, so he's shown that he's dangerous for all 15 minutes. And Craig, he just is a strange style. That's why he's gotten wins over guys like Jamal Hill and Magomed Ankalaev, who on paper are much better fighters than he is. But, he's tall, he has good kicks, he has no fear of throwing kicks. Ultimately, he wants fighters to take him down, fall him to the ground so he can work from his guard. And he has one of the best guards in light heavyweight history. He has 5 finishes off of his back, and that has to be a light heavyweight or close to a UFC light heavyweight record. Nikita Krylov is a guy that's been submitted 5 times, so you have to believe Craig is confident he can catch him in a sub. Krylov is well-rounded. On the feet he has good movement. He moves in and out pretty well. He has good kicks. He has improved his hands, but really only looks for one and done with the hands. He'll look for the lead hook. He'll look for a cross, a big overhand. He will try to mix in some elbows, but he's not comfortable in the pocket. He's hittable there. He does have good leg kicks, good body kicks. He's finished multiple fights with high kicks, and he's good at sticking and moving, keeping the range. He actually was getting the better of Magomed Ankalaev for about the first 7.5 minutes on the feet before his movement started to slow down a little bit. And he has good timing on his takedowns. He will use his strikes to set up the double. He's been able to take down every opponent he's fought in his 5 UFC return fights. When he gets on top, though, he does have a tendency to go to submission over position, end up on his back, and he has gotten a little bit better with his decision-making in recent fights, I believe, but early in his career, he would go for guillotines, end up on bottom. He would try to take the back, end up on bottom, and he's been able to win rounds, though, against really elite guys like Glover Teixeira and Magomed Ankalaev. And, he's been able to take those guys down. He isn't the best off of his back, though, when he does get taken down. His takedown defense has improved, but he can get taken down through his kicks being caught. He usually is on the back foot, so fighters can use some strikes, get him thinking strikes, then shoot in on him against the cage, get him down. And he's gotten better at getting up against the cage, but he still makes mistakes. He gets tired. He allows himself to be controlled, and he's been submitted 5 times. So he did show improvements in that realm against Glover Teixeira. He had his back taken in the first round. He was able to reverse, get on top. He was able to mount Teixeira. He was able to almost submit Teixeira. So he's shown some really good moments. Against Magomed Ankalaev, he was taken down in the second and third round, but Ankalaev isn't a big submission threat and just kind of held Krylov down, got the decision win. Krylov, his cardio is good, I'll say, but he has a cardio taxing style. He's really big. He moves around a lot. He tries to throw a ton of kicks, and he just can't keep it up for 15 minutes, so he does slow down. For Paul Craig, he does get tired as well, and he's similar to Krylov. He's long, lanky, uses his kicks. He likes to get fighters to take the front foot. He'll try to use the jab, good front kicks, round kicks. He likes to throw a lot of spins. His hands are not the best, but, just like Krylov, he pulls back in the pocket. He leaves his chin available. I do think Krylov is the better striker of the two, but Craig is improving his striking. He's getting more confident with it, and Krylov isn't necessarily the most high IQ durable fighter, so Craig does have a chance to land a clean shot on the feet as well, but Paul Craig is a wizard on the mat. That's where he wants to be. And he has decent wrestling. He has good timing on the doubles. It's going to be interesting to see if he could take down Krylov. When he gets on top, he isn't super dangerous. He has okay top control, but he's much better off his back. I mean, one thing he does do that I like is he'll shoot in, get really deep on the takedown, and then pull fighters on top of him, pull guard, and that's how he won his last fight against Jamal Hill. He submitted him. But when he gets on top, I have seen him get swept, lose position, and he doesn't really have a ton of submissions from the top position. But he was able to take the back of Shogun Rua, flattened him out, and finished him with ground and pound. And he is dangerous anywhere on the ground. So even if he's on top of Krylov, I'm sure he'll be comfortable there. But, Craig is notorious for his full guard. He has multiple triangles, arm bars. His last fight, he was able to dislocate Jamal Hill's elbow, finished him with some nasty ground and pound, and it was probably his best finish to date. This fight to me is fairly tough to call. I think that Krylov has the advantage on the feet, but by a slight margin. For Craig, I don't think it's the worst striking matchup because Krylov isn't a big pressure fighter. He isn't a great boxer. He doesn't have big power in his hands. And the fighters that have given Craig trouble, like Alonzo Menafield, Khalil Roundtree, they're able to bomb out of there with the hands. If Krylov can land a clean high kick or an elbow, he definitely could take out Craig, but those are a lot harder to pull off, obviously. Krylov has good but not great takedown defense, I would say, and he likes to wrestle himself, so if he does go for a takedown, he's putting himself in danger, especially if he does it when he's already tired. And ultimately, I just believe that I have more faith in Paul Craig here to be solid over 15 minutes and eventually get that finish. I think that he's going to be able to become the sixth man to submit Nikita Krylov, and I just think Krylov's going to make a mistake sometime over the fight. Paul Craig is going to be able to submit him and, move his winning streak to, I believe, 5 wins in a row. And with this next matchup, we got the big boys. We got the heavyweights throwing down with 2 Russians. It's going to be Russia on Russia violence here in the heavyweight division. And Sergei Pavlovich, he's ending his 2.5-year layoff. He's facing a veteran in Shamil Abdurakhimov. And he's had some visa issues. I think that is what has precluded him from fighting. But now that the UFC is in Europe, he's ready to perform. He's only 29 years old, so he's not old at all for heavyweight. He has a lot of time to develop. It's a little bit of a shame he's not been able to stay more active. He lost his UFC debut to Alistair Overeem, but that's a hell of a debut, and he's been able to bounce back. Got 2 first-round knockouts since then. Shamil Abdurakhimov, he made his return to the sport. He had over 2.5 years, or over 2 years away, and came back. He fought Chris Daukaus late last year, and man, it didn't go well for him. He got put to sleep violently. Basically got knocked out twice in one fight. And originally Abdurakhimov was scheduled to fight Tom Aspinall on this card, but they decided to make Aspinall the main event. They pivoted from that and they gave Sergei Pavlovich this fight. Abdurakhimov, he's 40 years old. This is a make or break fight for him. He has to get the win here. If he loses this fight, I just don't really see a way that he could find his way back into the rankings or, in any more marquee fights. It's pretty pivotal fight for him. When I'm looking at it, I mean, Sergei Pavlovich, he is a guy that has a really long reach. He's 84 inches. He's southpaw. He has really good boxing. And he has a good jab, good check hook. Controls the range pretty well with the lead hand. And he has a big straight and overhand left. He could put fighters' lights out with it. He has big power in the left hand. When he has guys hurt, he'll let go with really good combinations. He has really good hand speed and good punching technique for a heavyweight. But he can be a little bit plotty and he can move a little bit slow with his feet. He's heavy on his lead leg, and I have seen fighters be able to pot shot him and make fights really low volume against him. He's more of a counter puncher. When he hurts you, he will let go with the combinations, but isn't super active with the combinations before that. He has 10 knockouts, so obviously he does have that big power. And he's not a big kicker. His takedown defense is alright, but I don't really think he has to worry about that in this fight either guy. I think it's going to be more of a striking fight. With Shamil, he has good movement, good footwork. He's skillful. He likes to stay at the end of kicking range and then counter punch as fighters try to close the distance, and he has pretty good counters. He'll mix in the right crosses to the body, to the head. He has good hooks. His inside game is all right. I mean, he's okay in the clinch. He isn't really the best wrestler, but he can kind of control you there, kind of hit some foot sweeps. But his last fight, he got hit with a big left hook, got mounted, got finished with ground and pound. That was after being hurt in the first round. And Shamil, he's had issues with fighters that could put him on his back. He's mainly done well against guys that he could strike with, but now getting a little bit older, his movement and his style, I think, is predicated a lot on athleticism, and I think it's starting to go for him. But I could see this being a first round knockout for Sergei where he catches him, puts him out clean, or kind of a slow grind decision. Abdurakhimov was put out in his last fight. He's 40. He is, taking that sort of damage on your chin coming back 6 months later, I don't really think he's going to be the same durability wise. But I do think he has the better footwork. He has more weapons. He has the chance to stick and move and pick up a decision with his foot speed here. But I think it's more likely that Pavlovich is able to land the big shots that get the job done. He's 11 years younger. He has sharp hands. He isn't going to get taken down in this one, I doubt. I don't have a ton of faith in Pavlovich because of his track record. He hasn't fought a ton of great guys. He has had some fights where he's looked a little bit, subpar. But I'm going to go with Pavlovich by first round knockout here. I'm going to say he's able to catch up Abdurakhimov, who's not taking the right amount of time to recover and knock him out with the straight left hand. And up next here, we got my least favorite fight on the card here with Mike Grundy taking on Makwan Amirkhani. We got two guys here that are mainly grapplers, wrestlers. They don't really have much striking. They don't have the best fight IQ, and they don't have the best cardio. So these are guys that I don't really like to, bet on. I like to fade them. I remember when Mike Grundy, his last fight, he fought Lando Venata, and I picked Lando. I bet Lando, and man, you guys were acting like Mike Grundy was going to be like the next John Jones or something. Nah, but I mean, man, you guys were really confident in Mike Grundy last time, a lot of people. And I guess Mike Grundy has a big fan base, and, he was a Olympic level wrestler, I believe. I think both these guys represented their country in wrestling. And ultimately, though, just looking at the fight, I think that Makwan is a little bit more dangerous with his submission game early in the fight. Like early on, he's going to be, in my opinion, a lot more not powerful, because Grundy's very powerful with his straight right hand, but he's going to be more explosive. He's going to be able to move around better, and if he can land like a big flying knee or a big shot or somehow get into a really advantageous position early, like the back or something, he could get Mike Grundy out of there. But I think that Grundy is the better wrestler and the better striker ultimately. And I think that Grundy has more power. He's a little bit more durable as well. So I think on the feet, Grundy likes to pressure forward. He's a little bit plotty and he's very low volume. He could get stuck and move on. But Makwan doesn't have that ability to do that, in my opinion. I don't think with his gas tank either. I don't think he's going to be able to hit takedowns that consistently or if at all on Grundy. And I think Grundy is going to be able to probably keep it standing is what I think he's going to try to do, and try to work that right hand. And I think he could even get a knockout. So I just feel like Grundy is a little bit better overall everywhere. I think he has better cardio, better durability, better wrestler, better striking. He has good front choke submissions. I don't really see him being able to submit Makwan, but I'm just going to go with Grundy here. I think he's going to be able to I'll say he gets a knockout second round. And up next here, we got Jai Herbert taking on Ilia Topuria, and this is a bit of a squash match, really. We got, Ilia, I think his pre-fight antics the whole fight week with Paddy is going to be more entertaining than the fight, because I kind of think this can be a pretty one-sided fight with Jai Herbert versus Ilia. Ilia is moving up to lightweight, so that's something that you have to take into account a little bit. He had a fight at featherweight fall through because he missed weight, and I guess maybe either the UFC told him you got to move up, or he just wanted to move up because he wasn't comfortable making that weight anymore. But we got Ilia Topuria, who's a nasty boxer, really good pressure fighter, and super good submission artist, really good takedowns, and just a terrible style matchup for Jai Herbert. Jai Herbert does have a big height and reach advantage. He has pretty slick striking. He has power in that straight right hand. So he's going to be looking to, land that straight right hand down the pipe, maybe land an uppercut. But we've seen Herbert's previous fights. He one has durability issues, so if Ilia could back him up to the cage and put a combination on him, he throws heat, he could knock him out. And he has issues with grapplers, getting taken down, getting controlled. And Topuria is a guy that if you have issues with that, I think he's going to take you down very easily. I think he's going to be much faster than Herbert. Herbert's a guy that relies on his speed a lot at this division, but coming up a division, Ilia's already fast at 45s. He's going to be fast, I believe. I think he's going to be able to get in on the guy that's a lot taller than him, get in on the legs pretty easily, get the takedown, and I think he submits him either in that first or second round. We saw Herbert against Renato Moicano. He got taken down, got dominated, so I kind of see the same thing happen here with Topuria, and I think Ilia is going to continue to roll here and just get the job done by first round submission in pretty dominant fashion. And in this next fight, we got Molly McCann, who's going to be looking to make it 2 wins in a row in her UFC career and 2 wins in a row in England in the UFC. She had a mishap in her first fight in England. She went in there against Jillian Robertson, got choked out unconscious, but came back. She beat Priscilla Cachoeira, and now she's going to be fighting Luana Carolina. She had a little bit of a rough patch recently where she lost to Tyler Santos. She had another loss to Laura Procopio, but she was able to bounce back at that win over Jiyeon Kim in a tough, gritty fight. And her opponent, Luana Carolina, she's a girl that has been cashing as an underdog recently. She was able to go in there as an underdog and beat Priscilla Cachoeira. Then she was able to go in there against Ariane Lipsky, had a bad performance, lost that fight, but she came back and she won against Lupi Godinez. And she also has another win against Poliana Botelho, where she was the underdog in both of those fights. So she's been improving. She's been starting to show her worth a little bit. And with this fight, I mean, we got kind of a similar scenario with every Molly McCann fight. She has I believe, a less of a reach advantage than Jiyeon Kim did, but she has a huge reach advantage on Molly McCann. She's going to be looking to keep the distance, Carolina, with their kicks. But the thing is, Carolina doesn't really have the best distance control. If you watch her fights, a lot of her fights devolve into a lot of clinching and things like that, but Carolina does have some dangerous weapons. She has good elbows, good knees, good kicks, and she has a long reach. She has decent punches, so McCann's going to struggle a little bit to close that gap, but Carolina, she does allow herself to get backed up, and McCann is a pressure fighter. She has decent hands. I mean, not really great, but for this division, they're serviceable, and if she gets in the pocket and can put her combinations together, I think she is going to be able to land some clean punches on Carolina. Carolina is durable, and she has great cardio and volume, so McCann is going to have to match that, and that's something that McCann is known for as well. But I think the difference in this fight is going to be who can win the grappling. That's been the difference in these girls' last few fights, besides McCann's last fight was all striking, but if you look at McCann's last 2 losses, she was taken down and controlled. Luana Carolina, her last 2 opponents came in there with the game plan to take her down, and Carolina was able to thwart that, negate the takedowns, and get them tired and then outstrike them in the later rounds. And I do think that McCann should come in here and try to mix it up, because Carolina can be taken down still, even though Lupi Godinez and Botelho weren't able to take her down effectively in the clinch. I think that Lupi, she got too one-track oriented, like she was trying to get the takedown way too much in terms of she didn't set it up with her hands as good as she did in the first round when she got the takedown and got on top and won the round. I think McCann is going to be able to set up her boxing with her hands a little bit, or her wrestling with her hands a little bit better. And I think she's going to be able to make some of the takedowns a little bit more advantageously for her. And I also believe that she's not going to slow down quite like those other girls. So I'm going to go with McCann. She's a slight favorite here. I'm usually not a big fan of Molly. I don't pick her too often, but I think with this matchup, she has seen this size and reach disparity before, and I think she has the advantage in that dirty boxing range, in the boxing range, and I think she has an advantage on the ground. So I think that McCann is going to be able to get that energy from her home crowd. She doesn't have to deal with someone trying to take her down here in this fight, and I think she's going to be able to get the win here by decision. So this one should definitely be a fun one. We got the return of Gunnar Nelson. He's going to be taking on Takashi Soto. And Gunnar, hopefully he can start to be more active. He's a fun guy to watch, but he hasn't fought since September of 2019. Since his loss to Santiago Ponzinibbio, it just seems like he hasn't been able to get the ball rolling again. He did bounce back and got the win over Cabo Oliveira about a year after that loss, but he then lost to Leon Edwards and Gilbert Burns. And Gunnar Nelson, he's a guy that's an OG though, and the layoffs are not really something that I think are going to affect him too much. He's used to having these long layoffs. He debuted in the UFC in 2012, so it's been a long time, man. And all of his losses have came against top 5 opponents besides his loss to Rick Story. So he hasn't picked up a ton of marquee wins, but he's derailed some hype trains and he's had some great performances. He was going to fight Claudio the Hannibal Silva here, but Silva was forced to withdraw and he got replaced by a totally different style matchup at Takashi Soto. Soto is 2-2 in 4 fights and he is coming in here on short notice. Both of his losses in the UFC have came by submission, and I do think this is a very good matchup for Gunnar Nelson. I know some people are talking about Nelson's layoff. He's going to be hard to trust with that, but Takashi Soto, he's a guy that is decent. He's southpaw, and he has good distance control. He likes to stay in and out and kind of just snipe with that straight left hand, and that's really his game. The 1-2 is the straight left hand, but I think that Gunnar Nelson, he has that kind of karate striking style down pat as well. He can close the distance super fast, and I think he can close the distance faster than Sato. Sato, his grappling, in my opinion, is not that good. I don't think his takedown defense is the best. I don't think his submission game is the best, and we've seen him give his back multiple times. He gives his back to stand up. He's been submitted by rear naked choke twice. Gunnar Nelson is an elite back taker. If he takes his back, he's going to submit this guy, and I just think this is a good matchup stylistically. I think it's a match where Gunnar can come in here and cruise. So, this isn't Gilbert Burns. This isn't Leon Edwards. I think Gunnar Nelson's going to come in here and get the first round submission. So, I got Gunnar Nelson bouncing back in a big way. Hopefully, this win could rejuvenate him if he gets in the type of way that I think he's going to get it. And he starts to be more active, because I'd be interested to see him in there with some different type of guys, some new guys. And I'm going to go with Gunnar Nelson here. And up next here, we got some solid matchmaking from the UFC with Paddy Pimblett taking on Kazula Vargas. I think UFC, obviously, they got the next great hope for English MMA here, and Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. And being from the UK, it gives a lot of fighters a big push early in their careers. And, they can get that fan base behind them, move up the rankings really quickly. But a lot of these guys, if you look at them historically, they really haven't been able to live up to the billing, and, maybe being pushed up so fast has hurt their career. Pimblett, if you ask me, is not close to being the best prospect or one of the best up-and-coming fighters at lightweight. I don't even believe he's a top 50 fighter in that division. So I think that it's smart to give him these matchups with guys like Vargas. Don't throw him in there with Ilia Topuria. I know they're having that beef right now, but I don't think that's a good fight for Paddy. But Paddy is fighting at home for this fight. He's fighting on the main card. He's fighting a guy that's 1-2 in the UFC, and Vargas is coming in with some momentum. He did beat Zhu Rong in his last fight, and he was a pretty big underdog there. But stylistically, this is a good matchup for Paddy Pimblett. I do think that Vargas is a little bit underrated in the big scheme of things. His losses came against Jose Caceres at 170, who is a dangerous guy. He submitted Kamaru Usman. He also lost a split decision to Marco El Padillo. I believe I don't know 100% sure if that's his name. I don't got it written down here. I believe that was who it was that he lost a split decision to. And he was 12-4 as a pro when they fought. And then he lost to Alex Da Silva, who's a pretty good fighter in the UFC. His fight with Brock Weaver, he got disqualified. He was winning that whole fight. Paddy, I would say, Vargas is maybe the best fighter that Paddy has faced. But, I don't know about that necessarily, because, I just don't really feel as if Pimblett has fought a lot of great opponents, but he did fight Soren Beck, Nadir Rahmani. Even though they're a little bit smaller, maybe they're a little better than Vargas, but Vargas, I think, is right up there with the level of opponents that he's fought. He fought Julian Erosa as well, but looking at this fight, when I watch Kazula Vargas, he is very, very intense. He's a fun guy to watch, and he's going to go out there, and if Paddy just decides, I'm going to strike with this guy and try to knock him out, he could be in some trouble and he could get hurt himself. But Vargas, I've seen him slipped multiple times throwing kicks. He doesn't have the best balance. I don't think he has great takedown defense. And I've seen him give his back really early in the fight against Alex Da Silva. Saw him give his back multiple times in that fight and in other fights. And I feel as if Paddy, who's a guy that I think he has kind of poor cardio, he gassed out against Nadir Rahmani and Soren Beck. But what he does have is he has that confidence, and when he has that crowd behind him and that whole aura about him, he could start off super fast and be kind of a whirlwind early in that first round. And I feel like he's going to be able to get Vargas's back at one point and just submit him with a rear naked choke. I think that Pimblett, on the feet against Vargas, definitely could compete, and he could even get the knockout standing as well. It's just that would make the matchup a little bit harder. But I think ultimately Pimblett, either through Vargas making a mistake and end up on bottom, or Pimblett getting the takedown, I think Pimblett is going to get on top, get the back, and I think he'll be able to get him out of there with his aggressiveness in his submission game. I think Vargas, kind of being brought in here as a handpicked opponent. So up next here, we got a intriguing fight as well in the co-main event. We got Arnold Allen, who has been on a tear. He's been doing really well in his UFC career. He's undefeated at 8-0, but he hasn't really fought that marquee level of opponent. He has had a lot of layoffs and hasn't been able to capitalize on just how good he has been in the organization. But with this fight against Dan Hooker, Hooker is a guy that maybe necessarily has not had that same type of perfect run or just sustained success as Arnold Allen. He's had his ups and downs in the UFC, but he moved up to lightweight. At featherweight, he was only 3-3, and he is moving back down here, but he was only 3-3 at featherweight in his first 6 UFC fights. He wasn't really a big name. He was kind of middling in that division, but when he moved up to lightweight, he went on that big tear, and he beat a lot of really good guys. He got some big knockouts. He went in there with Dustin Poirier in a fight of the year type of fight, and he started to build a brand for himself. And recently he started to fight these really, really high-level guys. Like he went in there against Michael Chandler, who obviously has fought for the belt in his last 2 fights and got knocked out in the first round. He went in there with Islam Makhachev on short notice his last fight and didn't get the job done there. So he's lost 2 of his last 2 fights. He's dropping back down to featherweight. So Hooker's kind of on a different type of trajectory in terms of he's trying to find that mojo again. He's only 32, so he's still kind of in the middle of his prime in his career. And, when you look at his UFC career, all the guys that really beat him in the UFC outside of fighters that have super, super explosion in power, like Dustin Poirier, like Edson Barbosa, Yair Rodriguez, they've had to really take him down and control him on the ground to beat him. And we all know about his striking acumen, being at City Kickboxing, having that really long reach. He's going to have a 5.5-inch reach advantage in this fight, having those really dangerous weapons with the front knees. He has really good elbows. He throws some pretty nice 1-2s. He keeps it long. He can switch stances, really nasty kicks, hard leg kicks. And he definitely has the more diversity of weapons in comparison to Arnold Allen on the feet. Allen is primarily a boxer, really. He has really sharp hands. He has a really nasty jab. He goes 1-2s. He has a southpaw stance, so it's a little bit tricky for guys. He's really fast, and he can close the distance really quickly, so he can kind of stick and move with his hands. In his last fight, he was landing really good shots off the break that stunned Sadiq Youssef and kind of won them the fight. And he did start to kind of show off some improved kicks as well. He landed a high kick in that fight, and he does have the ability to kick. It's just he does primarily box, and he likes to come in a, tight shell, come forward. And one thing I do think that he does that could be a hindrance to him in this fight is he ducks down a lot. And ducking down against Dan Hooker, you're just asking it knee in the face. I think the leg kicks are going to be there for Hooker as well. And Arnold Allen is a guy that's a good grappler. He's been able to hit some takedowns on some guys. He's been able to get some submissions on some pretty good grapplers, come from behind wins. But his takedown defense isn't the greatest. Hooker's isn't the greatest either. So in this fight, I think if anyone does mix it up, though, and tries to wrestle, it'll be Dan Hooker. We saw him do that in his fight with Nasrat Haqparast, and he had a lot of success with it. He was able to take down Paul Felder in the last round to win their fight. He had some takedowns on Dustin Poirier, so he's been able to take down some high-level opponents. And I mean, I think this is going to be played out more of a striking fight, though. Arnold Allen, he is a guy that can be a little bit low volume. Hooker throws a lot more volume than him if you look on paper. Hooker is a guy that's a lot more hittable, but he is willing to take the shots to give the shots. And he's been in there in absolute wars. He's been in there with some of the best fighters in the world. He pushed Dustin Poirier to the brink, and Dustin is a southpaw, same as Allen, that has kind of a boxing style. He beat Paul Felder, Ally Quinna, Gilbert Burns, who all are very elite strikers with good hands. And Arnold Allen, it's just he has not faced that top flight competition. He's faced a lot of grapplers as well. Like if you just look at his career, we could look at it right here. You know, he fought Sadiq Youssef, that is a striker, so that was the first striker that he did fight. And if you do look, I mean, he did not land a lot of volume in that fight. It was more because he had the knockdown, he had a couple takedowns. But Nick Lentz, he's a grappler. Gilbert Melendez is a grappler. Jordan Rinaldi is a grappler. Mads Burnell is a grappler. Makwan Amirkhani is a grappler. Yatsin Mesa, he's a striker. And obviously you saw Arnold Allen got him down 4 times, but that fight was in 2016. And then Alan Omar is a grappler as well. So, you know, this is a much different matchup. I think it's going to be kind of played out on the feet. I think they're going to have a 15-minute striking fight. And I think Hooker could get Arnold Allen out of there, but Allen, never really seen him rock, never really seen him hit too clean, and is going to probably be a durable guy. He's only 28 years old. He's young. He hasn't taken a lot of damage. I don't necessarily see Allen hurting Hooker unless the weight cut was a big issue for him and he's going to come in, look at sluggish, maybe having a weak chin and just get touched early. But Hooker's made weight and fought at featherweight a ton of times. I know it used to be a big issue for him, but the UFC PI has said that they've approved this weight cut for him, and I think he's going to look good here. And ultimately, I mean, I just think Hooker has been in there with way more high-level strikers. I think it's going to be a striking match. I don't think Hooker has to deal with someone taking him down like Islam, and I don't think necessarily Arnold Allen has that explosive type power or just crazy speed that Hooker has to deal with a guy like Edson Barbosa or Dustin Poirier. And I think Hooker is going to be able to get the better of it in kind of a close striking fight. So I'm going to go with Dan Hooker by decision. And then finally, we have the main event here. 2 of the biggest guys at heavyweight. We got maybe not the biggest size-wise in terms of muscle mass and weight, but Volkov 6'7", Tom Aspinall 6'5", and this should be a hell of a fight. I mean, we got Aspinall, who shot up the rankings in the UFC. He's 4-0, but he hasn't really gotten that big marquee win yet. He did beat Arlovsky. He beat Sergey Spivak. So those are 2 good guys that are maybe kind of right outside the top 15, or maybe Arlovsky's ranked at this point, but he is kind of a low-level ranked guy. And now he's jumping into fighting top 10, top 5 guys with taking off Alexander Volkov, who Volkov has been in there recently with only the best fighters in the division. If you look at who Volkov has fought in his last few fights, he did have the fight with Tybura in there, but he fought Overeem, he's fought Derek Lewis, he's fought Curtis Blades, he's fought Cyril Gahn. He's been in there with the cream of the crop recently, and it's a huge step up for Aspinall in terms of going from Spivak to Alexander Volkov. And it's a fun matchup. I mean, we got Aspinall, who's in England. He has been asking this whole time he's been in the UFC that he wants a slow build. He doesn't want to jump up to the title fight too quickly. But I don't know, maybe he changed his mind on that, and now he's decided that he wants to try to jump into that top 5 sooner than later, because if he beats Alexander Volkov, there's not much more room to go. But both these guys, I mean, they're mainly strikers. Aspinall, he's more of a boxer, whereas Volkov, he lets all of his weapons go. Aspinall, he has really good hands. He has some of the best hand speed in the division. He has really good 1-2s, and he does a good job backing guys up, timing that right hand, putting it on your chin, and taking you out. And we haven't really seen a lot outside of that with Tom Aspinall in his career, because he's beaten almost every opponent that he's had in the first round. In the UFC, we did see him go to the second round against Andrei Arlovsky, and I do think we saw a little bit of chinks in the armor there. We saw towards the end of the first round, Aspinall started to get a little bit tired. And then when you got into the second round, I did feel like Arlovsky was a little bit quicker on the feet and looked like he was getting a little bit better at the striking. He was tagging Aspinall a little bit, but Aspinall was able to use his black belt and jiu-jitsu, mix it up, hit the takedown, get it to the ground, and Arlovsky kind of just gave him his neck. It was a really kind of weird thing Arlovsky did there, but Aspinall got the submission win. And Aspinall did have another fight against Alain Badeau where he got hit with the up elbow and Badeau was moving around on him and probably making him feel a little bit uncomfortable. So he decided, I'm going to take the path of least resistance here, take this guy down and finish him. With Volkov, that's been Volkov's Achilles heel for a long time now. He's had issues with guys being able to take him down, control him on the ground, and beat him up. He's usually able to stay alive in the fight. He doesn't get finished, but those guys that he's been fighting aren't black belts like Aspinall, so I don't think he wants to let Aspinall get on top of him. But in recent years, he has put on some weight. He's improved his takedown defense quite a bit. And the guys that have taken him down are guys that are high-level wrestlers, that are guys that wrestled in college or are from Russia and wrestled their whole life or things like that. So Aspinall, he doesn't have that wrestling. I don't think he's going to be able to take down Volkov effectively, so I think that's not going to be a big opportunity of victory for him unless he does it early in the first round, surprises Volkov, and gets the job done early like he likes to do. Volkov sees a guy that has a lot of experience, man. I mean, he's seen it all. He's been in 5-round fights. He's been in there 5 rounds with guys like Fabricio Verdum, guys like Curtis Blades, guys like Cyril Gahn. And Volkov's a really skillful striker in his own right. I would say he's one of the best strikers in the division. He has really good kicks, front kicks, round kicks. He has that really big reach so he could throw those straight punches down the middle. And he's very sturdy, balanced. He has good durability. He likes to stay right in your face. He doesn't really have the most footwork and foot movement. And I do think Aspinall is quicker and faster than him. He's probably going to be trying to pot shot him and stick and move and then land that big shot. But I'm going to go with Volkov here, man. I feel like there's too many questions with Tom Aspinall. I see a lot of people are very confident in Aspinall as well, but I don't necessarily think he has the wrestling to take down Volkov. And Volkov isn't a guy like, he's not Parker Porter. He's not Alain Badeau. He's not a 42-year-old Andrei Arlovsky. He's not Jay Collier. You know, I don't see him getting blasted out of there in the first 2 minutes of the fight. And from what I've seen from Aspinall is he does slow down very significantly. I haven't seen him even go past the halfway point of the second round. This is a 5-round fight. I mean, this is a long time to be in there with a motherfucker like Volkov on the feet, man. And I think Aspinall's going to get tired early. I think Volkov's going to take over and finish him in the third, fourth round. I think Volkov's going to show his veteran savvy. He's going to show he's still one of the best strikers in the division. He's going to show that his takedown defense is getting better and you can't just take him down unless you're a very credentialed grappler, wrestler. And I think he's going to be able to get the job done over Tom Aspinall and pull off the slight upset, send the English fans home a little bit salty, but I think that Volkov is going to get the job done. I know there's been a lot of question marks with Volkov with, obviously, I don't know how his camp has been going. I don't know where he's been training in Russia and things like that, but if he gets in there and he's fighting to even 80% of his capabilities, I think he's going to be able to get the job done. He just has to be smart early, not to get bombed out of there. And if he can avoid that and avoid being taken down and finished, then I think he's going to get the win. If you look at Volkov's career, he was submitted twice in the first round, but that was in 2009 and 2010. Since then, he's not been submitted at all. And he did get taken down by Vitaly Minakov and finished with punches in their fight in the first round. And has the loss to Derek Lewis by knockout in round 3 in a fight he was dominating. So Volkov, he's had 43 heavyweight fights and only has been finished 4 times. 2 of them happened in the first handful of fights in his career. And man, I mean, this guy's tough to finish. I don't think Aspinall's going to be able to get him out of there that easily. Volkov, he's been in decision 14 times. He's been 5-round decision multiple times. Aspinall's never been in decision once. I just feel like Volkov's going to get the win here. I think it's a decent bet as well. And I'm going to go with Alexander Volkov by 3rd or 4th round TKO here. So there you have it, guys. It's a full card breakdown for Alexander Volkov versus Tom Aspinall. I hope you enjoyed watching the show. And if you're interested in getting more content, check out patreon.com/MMAPredictionGuru. But like I said in the beginning of this video, I really appreciate everyone that watched my video, that supports my video, that likes it, puts a comment down below. So anything you do, man, I really do appreciate that. And thank everyone for just making this community possible. And I have fun doing these videos for you guys, so hopefully you guys enjoy them as well. As far as the parlay of the week as the most confident pick, for my parlay, I'm going to go with Ilia Topuria, Gunnar Nelson, and Paddy Pimblett. And for my most confident pick, it's going to be Ilia Topuria. So there you have it, guys. Thanks for watching my full card breakdown and predictions video for UFC Vegas 51, Alexander Volkov versus Tom Aspinall. I'll be back later this week or next week, so make sure to stay tuned to the channel. Appreciate everyone supporting, and I'll talk to you guys later.